The youngest Medal of Honor recipient, U.S. Marine Kyle Carpenter. Let's go.
I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted to devote my life, my body, if need be, to something greater than myself or any one individual.
I have to say, when I joined, I never thought about it that way. So when I hear these kind of words, I truly believe he felt that way. Now, it was after 9/11, so the complexion, the timing was completely different than I was in. But you hear those words out of his mouth, I can truly believe the man felt that way. Even as a young 18, 19-year-old going off on deployment, you can hear the genuineness in what he's saying.
In 2010, I deployed with 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines to Marja, Afghanistan. We were constantly attacked, just like we were every single day for the entire deployment. The fighting was very intense, and it wasn't a matter of, okay, is it gonna happen, but just a matter of when. Myself and an amazing friend and fellow Marine, Lance Corporal Nick Eufrazio, we were on top of that roof together. We were near the end of our 4-hour post position on top of the roof when the enemy initiated a daylight attack with hand grenades.
That's like the story you always hear about, where the man jumps on the grenade in a foxhole during World War II, Vietnam. And you hear about these stories, and most of the guys aren't living to tell this story. So when Kyle Carpenter, Mr. Carpenter, I'm going to call him, says that and talks about his story, it's just hard to understand what goes through your mind, right? What goes through a person's mind when their first reaction is to jump on it. So probably not a whole lot's going through. That's just natural instinct. And I don't know anybody's trained that way, whether it's the Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, the Army, just the kind of guy he is.
I felt like I got hit really hard in the face. My vision was as if I was looking at a TV with no connection. It was just white and gray static. I thought about my family and how devastated they were going to be, especially my mother, that I didn't make it home from Afghanistan. And I closed my eyes and I faded out of consciousness for what I thought was going to be my last time on this earth.
In those seconds that passed by, he remembers it's amazing right off the bat, because the amount of concussion you take, amount of shock to the body, you can't hear anything. Like he says, he can't see. And you think your mind would be racing, right? Like an adrenaline rush. But it sounds like he was pretty conscious to what was going on. Like he wasn't coming back. Wow. Now, can you imagine being in a hospital for 3 years? The amount of surgeries he has to go through, the amount of physical therapy and PT he has to go through just to be able to probably chew again, no less. I'm sure there was leg damage. When you jump on a grenade, I mean, the amount of surgeries just to get his face to look like it does today, I'm sure they'll tell us here, but I just can't imagine how that would be on you mentally. 3 years later, when you're young stud Marine, looks like he was a machine gunner. Next thing you know, you're laid up at the hospital, and the novelty, I'm sure, wears off pretty quickly. Like, hey, I made it, but this is it, right? This is my life here forward as a young man. What's next? I'm sure there's depression that's just unbearable to deal with.
My injuries were so severe that still 9 years later, it's hard to comprehend that I survived.
think I've heard this with most Medal of Honor recipients. Dakota Myers, I think, remembers bits and pieces of when he went back and forth helping other soldiers out, Marines. Like Mr. Carpenter saying here, it's a blur. It's like you get in a car wreck, for a simpleton like me. You get in a car wreck and you hit it. You kind of remember what was going on, but you really don't. It's hard to remember what happened yesterday, what you had for lunch, no less when something like that happens. It's turn your head, there's a grenade, he jumped on. Next thing you know, his body is wrecked.
I would encourage future generations. Not everyone has the freedoms and the peace and the chance and hope for democracy that we have here. Don't go through every day just thinking that we're just here because we're here. We got here because of incredible amounts of courage and sacrifice.
And the amount of sacrifice he's talking about, you can see it on his face. But if you ever have a chance to go to a VA hospital, Walter Reed, any of these big hospitals, or a nursing home, where you've got young men in their 40s with permanent brain damage. In other words, they were hurt. I can tell you from my perspective, I had an uncle hurt in 1968 when he was 22, and he ended up in a VA hospital nursing home with brain damage for 32 years. What he's saying is, it's little guys, small guys trying their best for what they believe is right because their country told them it is. And there'll be people in the comment section that talk about the policy of the war. Mr. Carpenter doesn't care about the policy of the war. Thought he was doing the right thing because his country asked him to. That's a very good takeaway. So there's a lot of men and women you just don't see that are buried away in a VA nursing home that have permanent damage, and God bless him that he made it out the way he did. And I hope he's got the support 5-10 years from now, because it's going to be a big burden to carry.
The medal represents all who have raised their right hand and sworn to give their life, if called upon, for their country. It represents those who have never made it home to receive the thanks and recognition they deserve. Those who charged the beaches in World War II, froze while fighting in Korea, bled out across the lush fields of Vietnam, and those who never made it home because of another deadly blast in the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. Those who were tortured for years in prisoner of war camps, and those who still rest in distant lands, forever remaining missing in action. The medal represents the
politicians should sit down with a man like Mr. Carpenter before they determine, hey, let's send your son off to fight. And that's where this is interesting, because you got these people that are honorable, like Mr. Carpenter, who want to do a job to defend the country. However a small part it is. Being on that rooftop in Afghanistan did not make a difference in the battle. He was there because he was asked to go. He was with his friend, his buddy, and other Marines that he trained with. And that's the part about this where people get lost in the shuffle. And we can support these guys by not sending their kids off to war, because Mr. Carpenters of the world, as soft-spoken and eloquent as he is, that's going to be a tough burden for him to bear 30 years from now. And I feel sorry for these guys that have to bear that burden.
Husbands, wives, and loved ones who have heard the dreaded knock on their front doors to find a telegram or service member delivering the unbearable news. This is where the true weight of the medal is carried. Being a Medal of Honor recipient is a beautiful burden, but one I am honored to carry.
If you ever have a chance to meet these men, when I was young, I had a chance to meet a man at Bay Pines VA Hospital, a Medal of Honor recipient. He was from World War II. He was in a wheelchair at the time, missing a limb, and the most gracious and kind man I'd ever met. That's what we all should aspire to.